Today we have Mr. Sumit Johan, Head of CSR at Mphasis. Thank you, Sumit, for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you. You've been very kind and humble in accepting to be our guest today. So thank you and welcome again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, Bhagishri. Very delighted to be here. We had this conversation earlier when we were preparing for this, and some amazing thing can be discussed in this format. First time. So very excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, so I was just going through your LinkedIn post, and I must say you write really well, and you should start writing more for the society, for the community altogether. So let's start with one of your LinkedIn posts, which I was looking at, which says someone from a nonprofit asked you recently what will make a proposal click to get funders' attention, and your response was recommending it as a friendly advice, which you said to keep it impact driven, that is, beneficiary is the delta, brand led, ideally for the donor, compliance focus, which obviously a lot of CSR already speak about, M&E. This is applied to CSR managers as well, managing varies committees and boards. So I really want you to dig deep or maybe help us in what does brand led mean here?
Sure. Thank you. A very interesting post that you were able to dug up. So this framework, and if you go to my profile on LinkedIn as well, I sort of created and I learned this over a period of time. And I could be right in this, but also open to learning. According to me, the approach, the way CSR is structured, one of the three things either will take more priority over the others, but all three are very important. So I always say that what is CSR? CSR is brand led, it is compliance driven, and impact focused. Since you asked me what is brand led, see, like every person, every human has a personality. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people are comfortable in front of thousands of people, some people are only comfortable with one-on-one communication or conversation. Uh, and there are types of people, like, like you're a kind of person, I'm a kind of person. Similarly, companies also personify a type. They personify what do they really want as a company, as a brand. What do they want to talk about? What are their needs? And there are multiple factors which all somehow culminate into companies bringing profit. So understand, companies' primary purpose is to be profitable and, of course, have a positive impact on the society or the community they operate in. But it always has to be brand led. It's their brand that leads it, whether for profit or for purpose. So that is what I mean by saying, when I say brand led CSR, some companies who also say that we don't want to publish our work, we are slightly media shy, is also a choice, but it's a personality type. Understand? So when somebody approaches a CSR organization for CSR funds, they must realize this. What sort of company are they? Because everybody is brand led. To what degree are they? That's the question to be asked. And that's what I want to tell you about this branded approach.
Correct, correct. So how do you personally define when we say success in CSR? Obviously, for NGOs, it's optimum utilization of resources, making sure that the impact is reaching the community and what that intend to be. But how do you define success in CSR?
See, it's a very interesting question, at the same time very broad, and it will be left for interpretation by different people if you ask in a different context and a setting. But let me just give you from the view that I hold about CSR. Is success is to be able to have the audacity to look for a solution for a social problem that have existed for a long time. The biggest social agency anyway is the government, and there's no work under CSR which a government is not doing in that sense, which means problem has always been there, solutioning has always been there. But the real success of CSR is to find maybe an alternate solution to that problem that has been existing over a period of time, and that success can come at a cost of having first failed. To me, that is the audacity that I would call a success in CSR. That's how I would define.
Makes sense. So I think with that, I think with the with our initial discussion as well, you said that whatever CSR is doing, government should take it as a pilot project and then maybe.
Yeah, you can look at that way, because the solutioning that you will bring from CSR, it's not going to be at a scale at what government is doing. And I understand what you're saying, Bhagyashri, that these models of successes or solutioning that we get should then be looked at by government at state level, at district level, at central level, whatever. And there are many examples already in the past. And I think CSR will continue to fuel into that direction. Let me break down the entire scenario for you. I'll give you some numbers. The entire projected market of CSR by in the next few years, even at 2025 to 2030 projection, we will be somewhere at 35,000 crore from CSR, the money that is coming. Now, the companies that are doing CSR are roughly about 27,000 plus. Now, 27,000 companies and 35,000 crore money. Of course, the other way to look at it is the top 10, 20 companies are contributing to the top 70% of the fund. But let's do a simple math. You divide 35,000 crore funds that will come into CSR by 27,000 companies. Roughly one company will land up, contributing about 1 to 1.5 CR. Is that correct? Just the back end math, which means the money is very small. So you can't attain scale, which means you can always look at funding something which is innovation led, which is complex, which is able to demonstrate that intent to find a solution and thereby take a pilot out. And then can that be scaled later? That's how I would look at it.
Absolutely. I'm sure being in CSR space, you would, also go on field, because that is also something that is also expected out of a CSR professional. So, do you recollect any of your field experience which you felt like? Because when I was having conversation with Mr. Kurram, who was one of our first guests, he said कि भाग्यश्री जब तक फील्ड पे जाके चाय और बिस्किट नहीं खाया तब तक मजा नहीं आया.
बिल्कुल, चाय बिस्किट और वो जो धूल से भरा हुआ रोड का जो मिट्टी नहीं चिपक जाएगा आपके होंठ पे, आपकी आंखों पे, तब तक आपको समझ नहीं आएगा फील्ड क्या है. So it is true. Yeah.
Can you help, just tell us what was your one of the fondest memory you would want to share?
Since you asked me fondest, I will stick to a very nice one, because ऐसे बहुत सारे life lessons भी मिले हैं मुझे field में जाकर, and if you allow, I'll share
Yeah,
that
yeah,
as well.
please. We'll go with that.
But one of the fondest memories was soon after COVID. And firstly, I want to say that जितना भी मैं CSR सीखा हूँ, and CSR is contextually very different from developmental work. Understand? Developmental work मैं आज भी सैल्यूट करता हूँ. जो नॉन प्रॉफिट स्पेस में काम कर रहे हैं, जो डेवलपमेंटल प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, जो सोशल वर्कर्स हैं, आई थिंक नथिंग बीट्स द एक्सपर्टीज. कोई भी CSR प्रोफेशनल आके अगर अपने इस एक्सपीरियंस को ज़्यादा इक्वेट करता है तो मुझे लगता है वो गलती कर रहा है. Because CSR is, from a professional side of things, is so codependent on the social development sector. The two cannot be separated. Anyway, we'll come back to the fondest memory. Just after COVID was rolled back, and people, things started going back to normal. So field visits also resumed. Otherwise, सब कुछ desk पे हो रहा था, and I was hating it. Anyway, so I wanted to go to the field. We were supporting this wonderful program in UP with women from small land holding farmers जो होते हैं, उनके जो wives, say if wife were holding the land or the man was holding the land, doesn't matter, we would call them didis. तो ये प्रोग्राम जो था, ये हम उनको ट्रेन कर रहे थे इन क्रिएटिंग ऑल्टरनेट ऑफ फार्म लाइवलीहुड्स. व्हाट वी मीन इज, उनके पास छोटे फार्म्स तो हैं लेकिन वो उसमें काम कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर पा रहे, बट ऑफ द फार्म जैसे गोट रेयरिंग हो गया या फिर चिकन रेयरिंग हो गया, can they do something around that? So we landed up working with a very remote community, जहाँ मुझे लखनऊ से तकरीबन 200 किलोमीटर और दूर जाना पड़ा, just to be on ground to figure out क्या काम चल रहा है. So it was that far, and we're talking about 2022. Understand? So we go there, and this whole place interestingly is cut off by a stream of water. So river है, उसकी एक छोटे सा stream निकल रहा है और उस जो village है उसको वो कट कर देता है. So for them to come back to the mainland, they have to take a full circle and come back on the main road. So medical emergencies बहुत issue है, and a lot of challenges around there. So we went as deep as that, and we wanted to understand how's the work being done there. And we were talking to some women who are part of a program, and So they were quite amazed seeing me come there. And I don't know what I was wearing, but it gave them an impression कि मैं local तो नहीं हूँ. So let's have a conversation with this man who's come to visit us. So I also opened up the conversation. I said मुझे आपके बारे में कुछ चीज़ें जाननी है. उसके बाद में आप भी मुझसे कुछ पूछ सकते हो जो आपको जानना है. So they wanted to know where I come from. So I said I come from Mumbai. What do I do? What's my family background and all of that. One of the things that lady asked me, one of the female, she said, "Sir, केक कैसा होता है?" पहले तो मैंने ध्यान नहीं दिया कि पूछा क्या ना, केक कैसा होता है, केक तो जैसा जैसा होता है. देन आई रियलाइज्ड कि ड्यूरिंग कोविड घर में सबके हाथ में मोबाइल आ चुका था. और ये इतनी दूर है ये जगह मेन टाउन से भी कि शायद इस महिला को उस टाउन में कभी शायद जाने का मौका भी नहीं मिला, क्योंकि वहां पर आपको केक शॉप्स मिलते हैं, पेस्ट्री शॉप्स मिलते हैं. तो शी मस्ट हैव सीन अ केक और अ पेस्ट्री ऑन अ मोबाइल. शी इज आस्किंग मी, तब मुझे उसका डेप्थ पता चला पूछ क्या रही है. 2022 में ये पूछा जा रहा है कि सर केक कैसा होता है, कैसा टेस्ट करता है. आई वाज लाइक, मैं यकीन नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ कि
21st century and
21st सेंचुरी में एक ग्रोन अप अडल्ट फीमेल मुझसे ये जानना चाह रही है, सर आप तो शहर से हो, हमने केक मोबाइल टीवी में देखा है लेकिन एक्चुअली मैंने देखा है कैसा है.
yeah.
मैंने ध्यान रखा वो. और मुझसे ज़्यादा जो हमारे फील्ड में जो काम कर रहे थे, हमारे जो नॉन प्रॉफिट पार्टनर थे. सो जब मैं नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर जब मैं फील्ड विजिट करने गया तो मेरे को टीम मिली और उन्होंने भी याद दिलाया. हमने बोला इस बार हम कुछ स्पेशल करेंगे, हम एक केक लेके गए. हमने उस महिला को आइडेंटिफाई, उसका जो जॉय, द काइंड ऑफ जॉय दैट शी फेल्ट, दैट वी रिमेंबर्ड दैट, एंड यू नो इट वाज गिवन टू हर एज अ गिफ्ट. आई कुडंट एक्सप्लेन इट कि मतलब ये एस्पिरेशन था. समटाइम्स you're trying to achieve big things,
Yeah.
right? But coming back to what is success, this small joy turned out to be a success story, a joy for me
Yeah, and
to even witness.
yeah, I know. It is
And
memory
equal
for
surprise.
life.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And we've seen two extremes here. One, though, they have access to internet where they see what
Right.
is,
Yeah.
and then on the other end, they do not have access.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah, it's
So we live in times which are so sort of contradictory in nature,
exactly.
which is why I think topics like CSR matters important.
And I think that's the power of a social impact as well, right? Where people like us on a regular day basis who are staying in Bombay or in metros, they do not know what is happening in
Yeah.
that part of the locality. And organizations like who are working at the grassroots, they give us an idea of, what is happening. And that happens when we go on field and understand.
Absolutely. No better learning than going on field and seeing what you fund and how it matters to people on ground.
And I think that gives you that passion, dedication, and zeal to keep on working at
Absolutely.
what you're working.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Without a doubt.
true. Coming back to what are the lessons that you've learned from?
And lesson, I'm glad that the way you spoke is that we live in times where it's 21st century, we have access to data, but we don't have access to basic needs. We also live in times, interestingly, where smaller problems, and I call it smaller very humbly because today education is not limited by what's taught in classroom, but a lot of people are learning online. So you said there is internet, there is access to a lot of information, data, opportunities, but people are not able to channelize. But what largely remains is societal issues around discrimination, around inclusion, gender. And I faced one and I saw it firsthand. And my heart cried saying that again, this exists in 21st century. And what are we doing superficially? We need to go down to that level where hopefully this changes in the long term. And CSR is one of those forces to be able to change that. So I'll give you an example. I was traveling with a driver. I will refrain from taking any specific names or tag any caste or religious context to it, but it's important to note that this is what happened. So this driver we were traveling with, and we had to go to this again a village area, deep in pockets of UP and Bihar. I was traveling, and this driver, from his appearance, seemed from a certain class of society, and he was quite a bit of a talker, and we spoke at length during the journey. And somehow he learned our work, where we are doing and what we are doing. We saw his behavior change because we are working with people from the marginalized a group of people. And marginalized could mean sometimes people from that strata of community or that strata of society where people find them untouchable. People find them, they don't belong to us. They should be kept where they should be, where they are. So this driver had this idea that what we are doing is we are disrupting the social order of the society that he exists in. And he stopped the car at least 200 meters before the entrance of the village and he said, "Sir, I will not take one step beyond this point. You have to go, you go." Of course, it was a big concern because there were women along with us. There were field workers along with us, the community that we were visiting. And it was a big lesson to learn that no matter what we talk about at a very high level, saying that things are changing, these many lakhs and millions of people are getting skills and opportunities and getting educated. But if this is not changing, I don't think so we are getting it where we want to, get to. And that was a big lesson for me that no matter what I do in life, I must support, I must be able to enable projects, I must be able to be part of projects and work that is impacting this area of our life, the very thinking and behavior and the mindset of people. I hope that changes at some point through my journey. That's a big
That's
lesson.
amazing. Thank you so much. So we've spoken about your, experiences and your fondest memory of CSR. Let's talk about your journey. Uh, how does it turn from passion to purpose? What is keeping you motivated even now?
Interesting story there, and thanks for asking and rightly putting it passion to profession. Um, I started out, taking interest uh, in developmental work, perhaps by accident or perhaps the young blood that I was back in college days and even before. The kind of background I come from, I'm a first generation learner in my entire family. Possibly the first guy who went to school, went to college, and somehow managed to clear it all through and be able to speak more than one language. And so all those good things happened because a lot of people through the journey that I've had so far came along and help me through, whether you can, quote unquote, call them as mentors or friends or, sojourners, doesn't matter. But these people shaped you for who you are today. And I really value that part of my life and value those people. When I figured out during my college days and when I took up, mass media and mass communication as my stream of studies, I realized that while media communication or journalism was reporting impact, but it was far from doing impact. And there's this very thin line that separates the two. Uh, but one of my professor and I give it to her. I owe her big time to be able to help me, you know, complete my education for that matter. And she encouraged me that, Sumit, if you really feel passionate about developmental work, you should figure out something and do something about it. I figured that this gift of language that I'm able to speak in English and I come from a vernacular medium. My parents are not formally educated. They only speak and converse in Hindi. Uh, so I feel I must get this across to people coming from my background, similar background. So I took out as a mission, as a journey, and I said I'm gonna encourage my fellow college mates to join me, and I was able to sort of rally up that support. And at one point, we had a strong field force of 30-40 volunteers just going out to some slums uh, in Mumbai, in the outskirts of Mumbai, and we figured that there are kids who've come along with these families who've settled in these, unorganized settlements. We must do something about them because they're all speaking vernacular language, and I firmly believe that speaking language, no matter what, whether you speak English, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, doesn't matter as long as you know the language, and language can unlock opportunities and can break barriers. That's power. And in my limited understanding and in my limited view, I felt this is something that I must give it and pass it on. So we started, some creating some content by, engaging with them on stories and dance and drama. At one point, which started as a side project, in the first year of my college, with just few volunteers and a handful of students. By the end of third year, we had about 150 to 200 kids fully engaged, always wanting and waiting for us on the weekends with a 30-40 volunteer force that we had. And that was my journey from being absolutely passionate about developmental work. And I felt that was a calling which again had a lot of hurdles. It didn't happen immediately that my passion became my profession. I did well as to be qualified as a journalist, and I did started my career in journalism. As I said, reporting impact and doing impact are two different things. So I felt I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So I had my own journey professionally. I was in this field of media communications for a long time, about 6-7 years. And I was moving from one job to another, and I joined an advertising firm by then. And There was a random call, and this is year 2013, which came to me from Parley Group, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for a CSR professional." And a lot of what I know, I get to know from reading. I read a lot. And so I knew what CSR as a concept was. I just didn't know how it is operationalized and how do you find a job in that. They said, "We are looking for a CSR professional." I said, "See, I'm an advertiser. I currently work for an advertising company. How do I qualify?" They said, "That's exactly what we're looking for." And that tells you a mindset of a lot of CSR folks who started doing CSR. The companies, they just didn't know where to fit it, right? So some companies thought maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So in that race, something lit up in my heart, and I figured that isn't this what my calling has been for, or this is what I am truly passionate about. And how many people, what are the odds of somebody getting an opportunity like this, from being totally passionate about something and then being very professionally involved in it. We had ended that project in the third year because we all got full-time job. We had given it to some charity to run it. Fast forward 7 years, when I get this call, I say yes to it because it was new. And I have a habit of saying yes to stuff which is new and interesting and that excites me. And the pay was not bad. And I said, okay, let's switch. It's only later that I got to know that the non-profit that took over a project, the little college students project, the GM HR of this new company, he was a board member of that NGO and he kept a track of me. I was like, this is serendipity. And this whole full circle came through, and I had to meet my purpose.
Life has its own way of.
Life has its own way of getting things at you, and I just landed up with a job which was nothing more than schooling for me. I literally learned what is developmental work in its context, what is CSR, the law, different laws that overlap, whether it's the Companies Act, whether it's the IT Act, FCRA or FEMA or any other laws that would, that I would need to transact. I literally learned it on the job, and it's been a journey since then. So that's the little story between passion to profession.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about mindset? So you worked in corporate and then you're working in the CSR space. We'll not
Correct.
call it corporate because it's more of on the social impact side.
Right.
Uh, what are the mindset changes that you had to sit down and maybe write down or reflect upon it? This is not is going to work in CSR, and this is how it was working for me in corporate.
So CSR, if you expand the word, it is very much corporate. It is corporate's social responsibility. What you're asking me to discriminate or differentiate is between a developmental mindset and a CSR mindset. They both are complementing, yet very different. I'll tell you, and I explain how that brand-led approach is very important to understand for developmental professionals when they come, requesting for funds or support a project or something. Because that is the key difference. One of the one of the main difference between a lot of differences that are there between corporate and non-profits. But mindset, if you ask me, CSR is pure corporate way of thinking, driving, and executing the social responsibility, which otherwise developmental space in terms of people who have been doing a lot of incremental work in non-profit space see it. CSR is very project driven. It's very result and outcome driven approach. Whereas if you look at the developmental space, that works towards changing maybe even a small change, but over a period of a long time. They invest their time, energy, effort, and money with the idea that this is the problem. The solution that we are working with is the solution that will get scaled at some point. CSR, I'm not saying that it's not worried about scale. Yes, we love scale, but we look at a part of that problem and solution at the same time to be able to resolve quickly and deliver impact and result. And that's the mindset. And if I'm answering you even more delicately, the two complement each other but are very different when they operate. For example, when corporates operate and look at CSR being discussed internally, is far different than how a non-profit board or their own machinery discusses it internally. So these are two different ways of doing the same thing, but are very complementary in nature.
Understood. Okay, let's get into uh, how NGOs, whenever NGO is approaching a CSR, say maybe for example you, how does that pitch looks like? Because I remember our meeting in Delhi, and you were very kind and approachable and friendly. It felt like you started the conversation as, hi friend, I missed your text and I was supposed to come and I couldn't come, and it felt like very, you felt as a human very approachable to me. And as we look at a CSR professional, and at times especially organizations who are coming from very grassroots and rural part of the country, they feel a lot hesitant in terms of to just maybe start a conversation. They'll be like standing in the queue and waiting for just to give or exchange cards. But then if you would want to suggest to them or maybe share your experience in terms of what could be a good funding pitch or maybe just a conversation starter, that would be really helpful.
So I think, see, I have done fundraising as well in the limited experience and exposure that I've had, and I understand what you're saying, and I will take it as perhaps a compliment that you
Yes,
said that if I'm
absolutely.
approachable, then perhaps there is something that I can share.
Yeah.
Why and how do I do this? I honestly don't have a fixed answer to it. How do I do it? It's just probably the
Yeah,
kind of person I
sure.
am. But having said that, a couple of inputs, if I can share that, if a grassroots organization is approaching somebody, see, if you're meeting somebody in a large gathering, it's a different skill set to get somebody's attention in that 1 or 2 minutes
Yeah,
engagement.
true.
Uh, but the best fundraising people that I have found and that have stayed in my mind, and it just stays in my mind that, oh, this person has spoken about something, is a person who has done a bit of a background check on two things. One is on the company that I represent,
Okay.
and two, the kind of person I am.
Yeah, very
It'll
important.
make a lot of difference if you were in this conversation today. If in my place, if you were speaking to a CSR professional who comes from developmental background, quote unquote, I come from media studies background. That makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
If you had somebody from, say, administrative or human resources background person and still being in a CSR profession or a role, it would make it very different. So understanding the background of that person's organization and that person, both are very, very important. The only piece of advice that I can share is, while fundraising people have lots to say, that give us 30 minutes, we would like to kind of do a conversation with you. I'm saying that's important. Always ask for it. But always have a 1 or 2 minute pitch ready also.
Yeah.
It's that real
Very
quick
important.
one. But it'll be a big waste if you haven't studied the person that you're talking to and the person's organization. Those two things will make your 2 minutes stick into that person's mind longer, no matter this organization comes from Mumbai or comes from a very remote part of the country. They will occupy the same space in the mind, right? And they're doing great work.
So, when I work with a few NGOs and help them design fundraising strategies, I also tell them that you'll need to invest a lot of time in researching your prospects. Think of it as a relationship or a friendship where you put in a lot of efforts in knowing the other person, finding common hobbies or what would interest them when you start a conversation, right? So it just can't be like you're reaching out to them and then you hand out a card and then write an email to them later on that, we met at that place and we would want to have a meeting with you. It doesn't work like that. There is a lot of investment you'll have to make in terms of researching, reading about what they're and how the common interest kind of at the end of the day falls on both the parties. How do we scale um, our CSR intervention with depth?
I have a varying view. If your question is already reading that CSR should scale with depth, I would immediately.
In general, because a lot of organization right now are in the race of raising more funds.
Right.
Let's just talk about in general,
Okay.
where everybody wants. I think we have gotten into a space of competition
Okay. Yeah.
rather than collaboration.
Yeah.
Where earlier the mindset was we take this community and we empower them and make it sustainable. Right now, it is like we have a budget of 10 crores and we want to make it to 50 crores.
Right.
And then also on the other end, we want to scale it. But then at some point, we are also losing on the depth of the program that we were thinking of. And then the empowerment, the sustainability, and all of it goes
Yeah.
sidelines. So, how do we?
See, there is no straight answer, but let me just give you a perspective. And I feel that both CSR and non-profits have a thing to learn in what I'm trying to say. And as I said, I'm open to learning too, because not all my views are right. These are my personal views, right? When you look at ACER report, the teachers ratio is, do you know the number? 1:8.
Not looked at the recent one. Yeah.
1:8. And you can take it as 1:10
10 also, I think, is
also,
the
it's
average
fine.
what they're talking about.
That's
Yeah.
for the, especially with children with special needs. That is the ratio there. I may not be remembering the exact ratio of regular students, but there's always a ratio on doing a consistent engagement with them over a period of long time. Any average student you and I have stayed in the schooling system for average 10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years, yeah.
That's how your mindset and my mindset is shaped. On an average, we have had roughly about 20 teachers involved in our curriculum and extracurriculum in a year's time.
Yeah.
So now let's extrapolate it by period of 10 years. We are looking at 200 same teachers. Let's double count them in terms of yearly. That's the number of human resources required to make change into how many person's life? One person. We are just taking one
Yeah.
as a unit. Now, my problem with the scale is this. A lot of non-profits are in this rat race of thing that they understand as a scale.
Yeah.
One issue is also because of the nature of funding CSR gives. It is project oriented. So yes, the flip side of that approach is that non-profits will come to us with a certain matrix of numbers. We will, employ or employment ready skills will be given to 100 children, or 100 children will be educated for a period of this time and that time, which is great. But the problem is the depth. Depth requires more people and staying longer. And both these things may not be achieved if the non-profit doesn't remain committed to stay there for that long. And I think that's something that I would want to kind of see also, hopefully going forward. CSR do that. And not that CSR is not doing it. I know many examples at my organization that I represent, the ones that I've worked in the past, that we have remained committed and consistent with what we've invested for a long period of time until we've seen a change. But we need more people like that. And that's the only way to achieve depth. And again, a piece of advice to non-profits is to not go and run after scale. If they figured out a solution, and depending on the area of work that they are impacting, there are, the law gives us now almost 13 to 15 broad areas to invest our monies in, right? Under CSR. But
Yeah.
which also means that non-profits who are coming with one specialization should technically remain invested in that. I see a lot of non-profits now coming with multi-sectoral specialization, which is nothing wrong, but then you will lose the depth.
Yeah.
If you want to maintain the depth, you must stay committed to that. At least you can have two or three thematic areas. Any average CSR organization will have two or three thematic areas, which is
Yeah.
fine for diversity, for finding out and investing money and not putting all your eggs in one basket, and all that theory is fine. But then non-profits also must understand the difference between scale and depth. That's what I would like to say.
Understood. Okay, very critical question. I think right now, as you said, a lot of professionals, young professionals who are out of their education, they are keen on joining social impact space. So when we talk about leadership at on the social impact or CSR in general, what are the skills that you would expect one should come with if you would want to hire or recruit somebody in CSR?
Great question. And I'm often asked that, and there are so many people who will reach out to me saying that, do you have an opening, or can you recommend some place? Or there are people who I know mid-career wanting to switch
Yeah.
from whatever work they are doing, sometimes more technical than what CSR seems to be. I would say one is the clarity around why do you want to switch to CSR.
True.
It definitely seems very lucrative. Some people figured it out that this is an advanced or more polished version of non-profit or developmental work. And I want to tell you that none of that is true. So having a very clear mind that if those who are wanting to switch careers and coming here, still operational style remains very corporate in nature. Skill set, yes, clear understanding of compliances, clear understanding of development space, clear understanding of what is impact and what is not impact, and having a knack to be a people's person, because you have to talk to a lot of people, and kindness is the only way through.
Yeah.
You will be loaded with a lot of expectation, but it's about how you manage multi stakeholders. And so, dealing with a lot of people, processes, multiple stakeholders, people who operate large businesses, to people who will help you operationalize things like employee volunteering. There's a whole new world. And we stand at sort of a juncture which connects a lot of these functions within a corporate. And at least that's the expectation. So if you think that this is a peaceful place, it's far from being one. A very chaotic place. But what it does is, through all the chaos, it brings in some sort of order and finds its place and value in any corporate where it is done diligently. And so you need to have a lot of people skill, communication skill, managerial skill. You need a lot of execution skill.
Lot
So
of patience.
lot of patience. So yeah, I can have another 1 hour session on this, but I'll leave you at this, Bhagyashree. But this is the bare minimum that you need to be.
Understood. What role do you think corporate could play in solving systematic problems like employability and climate resilience in today's era?
Corporate can play a huge role, especially if it is systemic change, and we've spoken at length. Especially a systemic change can only happen when developmental work has happened to a tipping point where now it will become a habit and a mindset of people to kind of carry it as way of their life. We know cities like Indore, they are the top cities or areas to have taken the Swachh Bharat mission so seriously. If you go today, people are very
One of
serious
the
about
cleanest
one of the
cities.
cleanest places. It was never always like that. If you go today and if you litter the local area, people do take notice
Point
and
out.
they correct you, and that has now become part of their very existence, right? So I would say that's the systemic change that CSR can support, can be part of in a long term, and not just one area. There are many areas, sports for that matter. People with disability need a lot of attention. they we're looking at not just what something that makes the life better. Any person with disability needs a lot of assistive technology in their life. Imagine we wearing glass is a very simple piece of assistive technology, but we don't recognize. Disability is only an outside thing until you don't realize that if that thing is not there in your life, then you're the person who's disabled. It's the environment that is disabled. Correct? It's not people with disability. It's the environment that is, not accessible, not friendly. That's when we realize. So a lot of work is required in that space long term, and CCSR can remain invested in that to bring about a systemic change. Environmental sustainability, interestingly, in India, CSR and ESG are two different pieces. ESG always impacts companies' footprint within their operations. CSR is for the community. But they can complement each other. CSR can always pick up projects which will impact the area that you operate in. For instance, our headquarters and a large footprint operation is in Bangalore. At Mphasis, we are very proud to have at least 4 5 projects within the city which are either impacting the water, or they're looking at generating more oxygen, or sequestering more carbon, or making an area green, so that the the community that we live in, it's not just a nice place to live in, but it's also equitable, in terms of we giving back. It's socially relevant, it's socially happy for people to operate in. And I think that's something that companies can stay invested in to work towards environmental sustainability goals.
Understood. Okay. Now I think we'll move to our next segment, which is very interesting. These are the questions that we've gotten from the community, where
Okay.
we've said that we'll have you as our next guest. So Rashmi has asked, she would want to know more about the focus of CSR, as in focus of Mphasis as part of their CSR.
So at Mphasis, we have two core pillars. One I already, shed some light upon, but let me just start by putting it this way. We have two thematic areas or core pillars. One is tech-enabled social mobility. Now, we all understand social mobility in its classic definition is that, when one person moves from a certain level in the socioeconomic condition to another level, it's called social mobility. There are various factors that impact it. We are a tech company. We believe if technology can enable that social mobility, so whether it's area of education, whether it's area of livelihoods, or working with people with disability or gender, and a gamut of it, we place this entire spectrum in tech-led social mobility. And the other is environmental sustainability. Here we are working with few areas where we are recharging water levels in the city of Bangalore. We are doing urban afforestation.
Yeah.
We are rewilding mangroves. We are rejuvenating lakes, and thereby achieving some amazing targets on oxygen generation and carbon sequestration. So that's what we're up to in our co-pillars.
Okay. Next question is from Rahul, who I think also is curious to know about the NCP EDP initiative of Mphasis.
Yes, so NCPDP is an organization that has remained invested, and we have remained invested with them. And we thoroughly call this as a partnership. It's a long-term partnership. So we do quite a few things with them, and our partnership goes with them before CSR. So that tells you our seriousness and commitment to stay invested in the area of people with disability. Very few organizations would support work in policy and advocacy, and we have remained truly invested in the area of working with people with disability, especially when it comes to their rights. Very recently, we launched a white paper on the need of insurance for people with disability. There's a lot of room that needs to relook at, to change it, and so that's the kind of work we're doing with them. We in fact supported NCPDP for the last census that was done, and to this one, there's a lot of groundwork that this organization has done into be including, from 4 to 5 areas which were recognized as disabilities are now increasing to almost 20, 21, and maybe more if that's the effort that will pay. We have created something called as Assistive Technology Hub. There are a lot of people with good intention who want to work in the area of disability. They have startups who are creating products, market-ready products, ideas that can be taken to market, they need a little bit of push. They need a little bit of support. They need a little bit of hand-holding. So this AT Hub provides that to those people. Then there are people with disability who are working to improve lives for people, say, in the spectrum of their own disability. They also are startups.
Yeah,
I mean,
what
what
makes
limits
sense.
them from not having their own venture? What limits them from not having their own startup? So we are fueling both these dreams, people who are coming with bright ideas to solve problems in this space, and people who have, disabilities themselves. They are also wanting to solve problems, for their
Yeah.
spectrum of disability. So we are funding and we are supporting these two spectrum of work within AT Hub. Third is we want to celebrate people who have done commendable work across the area of policy, advocacy, technology for people with disability. So that's an annual celebration that we do with NCBDP. It's a Universal Design Awards that we've been doing for last 16, 17 years now. And we're very proud supporters of this initiative because again, that this area requires a lot of encouragement, a lot of commitment to stay put for a long term. So that's what we're up to.
Amazing. Sheetal has this question which says, what excites you most about the future of social impact?
I think the most exciting thing of this space is it's here to stay.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
gives me a lot of hope to stay invested, not just from work, career, but to be able to see the delta move at some point. Yeah. And what's exciting is the number of young people, Gen Zs, taking interest in this space. In my own, I would rather call it a short career, expanding now almost to 20 years. I have come across at least 5, 6 incidences where I've had calls from new joiners. Okay. So you normally, have CSR folks orient a fresh management batch or people who join the organization the first time. So we'll always want to, company always want to tell them about, what CSR is. And I've had so many instances, Bhagishri, where these students have come to me and I said, we read about your CSR work, whatever company at that point I worked. And I had choices between joining this one and that one. And I joined you all because I felt this is a great. I only thought this is very theoretical. This doesn't happen. But I have witnessed such accounts of people give. So I think what's exciting is people now waking up to the reality of development space is not a story that is 200 kilometers away from you. It's perhaps the next door. It's the next gully. It's the next lane that needs development space, and they are very woke about it. I'm very excited.
And also, I think with the power of internet, you also have a chance to influence a lot of young mindsets.
Absolutely.
I think with
I believe, Bhagishri, sorry to cut you here,
yeah,
but a lot of young people, as they come into the workforce, will influence
absolutely.
the decision makers to take certain action, take certain decision to impact, to facilitate, to enable something which is a pressing need of the community that they exist in, that they love and they operate in. This is the exciting part.
And I think we need to have that balance called power balance, where we would say we would need to have young professionals who have just come out, who know what are the changes, how it could be, modified so that the mindset they are coming from that mindset, so we could do that. And then senior professionals and then the veterans in the sector, so that we have a balance there. Okay, we have another question from Ashutosh who wants to know, if given an opportunity, what would you like to change in the social sector and CSR ecosystem? Tricky one.
Yeah. What will I change? I mean, can you repeat the question again? Because I must answer this diligently.
Yeah, if given an opportunity, what would you like to change in the social sector and CSR ecosystem?
Yeah, so there are two parts to this. Change
Yeah.
that is needed at social sector and change that is needed in the CSR ecosystem. One of the things that I would really want to see change in the social sector is their ability to understand their funder, their potential funder or partner better,
Yeah, very true.
and go away from the traditional transactional route to a more relational route. I think that's very, very essential at this point. Most of the partnerships and projects that I've been part of, they've been long term where they say, right, finding friends in adulthood is difficult. So adulthood partnerships are even more difficult. And you rightly said, Bhagishri, earlier that this is more like seeing someone,
Yeah.
or being invested in that relationship. Perfect example, because you would need to have that EQ to be able to invest yourself
Yeah.
into that organization, perhaps sometimes represented by one person or a host of people, but you have to remain invested. So that's something I feel it's there. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's something that needs to change from being merely transactional to very relational. So that's one. CSR ecosystem, if you asked me, uh, I feel a lot of time the issue that see with my peers is the lack of depth in understanding certain things. Understand the role of a CSR professional is of that of an influencer.
Yeah.
That person is not the decision maker, is not the final authority, but he is an influencer. An influencer's job will only be good enough if that person soaks in all the aspects of the work that the company should invest in.
And what are those aspects?
Uh, so I can review a proposal, I can understand a project, I can look at some people and talk to them is one way.
Yeah.
Can a CSR professional be an expert at education, skills, people with disability, livelihood, sports, and 10 other topics? No,
No.
right?
Yeah.
How can that person be invested in?
Correct.
It's once you invest your personal time, your personal energy, your intent into that specific field, and then you also respond equally building relations. So it's not that one-way street that we spoke about, the non-profits building relations
Yeah.
and not transaction. It's not a one-way street. It has to be complemented from the CSR ecosystem as well, that we remain invested with people to learn as much as we can about that space. At least that is true to me. Have I funded all the non-profits that I know? Have I facilitated or have I supported all the friends that I have in the non-profit
That's
space?
not even
The
possible.
answer is no.
Yeah.
But why do I have the audacity to call them my friends? Is because I have remained invested in them. And I think that is something that this CSR ecosystem has to bring about. And this is not one individual person's responsibility. The ecosystem also has to facilitate that. So I would really like the CSR ecosystem to support and complement a CSR professional's journey into getting this fixed as well, where they also build a lot of relationships and create their own ecosystem, and within the peers and within the development space. I think that's something that can be fixed.
Absolutely. True. So that comes to the end of the questions that we've gotten from the community. But before we end, I have two more questions. If you had to start all over again today, what would you do differently?
If I have to start all over again, I would love to go and serve the Indian defense. That laid very heavy on me when I completed my grade 12th, and I wanted to serve either in the army or the navy. And if I had to restart, I would not hesitate and go back and serve the country in whichever shape or form I can.
No, I think you're doing it right now.
I am, but since you asked me the question, I had to give you an answer.
Yeah.
If I had to restart, I will perhaps come back to do this again, what I'm doing. But if I have to reset and restart, I would start with that journey.
One misconception about CSR you wish people would stop believing.
I mean, there are not one misconception. There's a host of it.
Yeah.
One of the things is that they are the decision makers. I already clarified in our chat today that they are the influencers. How good or bad of an influencer they are, it's their own understanding of development space matters. How good are they with people, relationships, their own level-headedness to understand that non-profits are not here and you are not here. So there is no, higher and upper in this it's a level playing field, and always be curious to learn and not to say that we know everything. That attitude is very important. I think that's about it.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important you understand a lot when the other person is saying no.
Yeah.
And the way the no is being said. Obviously, yes would always be that there's obviously a scope of collaboration, partnerships. But how do you say no to a person or a fundraiser or even the founder of that organization who has put in their whole, soul to the work that they're doing? So how does that no looks like? That that impression is something that we take away from the other person, that
Right.
whether we would want to maybe pitch to that kind of stature organization again as a corporate or no. Then there's a resistance and hesitancy that comes in where we will say like, okay, these corporates are really big and we should maybe not reach out to them or
Right.
pitch to them because this is how we are being treated.
Right.
I'm not generalizing it. It's just that some of the aspects. It's one of the leader who is I find him very kind and humble. He told me that Bhagyashree, it's not about आप उनके साथ कैसे काम कर रहे हैं हाँ बोलने के बाद. वो सब कुछ मैटर करता है कि आप उन्हें ना कैसे बोलते हैं.
Right.
बिकॉज आप जो वो उनको ना बोलते हैं ना उससे उनकी बहुत सारी चीजें जो उनके सपने हैं, ड्रीम्स हैं, एंड दी एस्पिरेशन दैट दे हैव कम टू यू, दैट होप दैट दे हैव कम टू यू, कि ऑब्वियसली मतलब they are also ready that it would not maybe turn out right.
Correct.
But maybe we could say that maybe we're not we just humble in terms of the response that we are giving out to them. So, yeah, I think with that, we are at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for being you. And, I would really appreciate for joining us today, being in the city and with, taking out personal time of yours and, being approachable, being friendly, calling me your friend on the first meeting. That means a lot. And I think that will eventually motivate a lot of people to maybe approach to leaders like you. Sure. In a social gathering where there are 2,000 people. Yeah. That will build a lot of confidence, but it also depends on how do they reach out. I have not reached out to you for any transaction, but yeah, it was just a normal conversation. Right. But thank you again for joining us today and sharing your insights and learning with the audiences. I'm sure there will be a lot of learning for them. I'm going to watch it again and make my own notes. I was making them already, but thank you again. Thank you, Bhagyashree. It was really an honor to be here, to be able to go through this conversation, which and initially I had the hesitance of thinking, what all can be asked and what all will be discussed. But I must say that I really appreciate your reason to do this. And one of the things that without we having a conversation about why are you doing this, Bhagyashree, I got it why you're doing it. And I really appreciate that. And if I can be a small part in your larger vision of things, I will only count it as a blessing. So thank you for having me here. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.